Welcome back to Phoenix Heritage. Today, we shall discuss the process of individuation. Concerning the goal of individuation, Carl Jung said, individuation is becoming the thing which is not the ego, and that is very strange. Elsewhere he writes, individuation means becoming an individual. And insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's own self. We could therefore translate individuation as coming to selfhood or self-realization. Individuation is defined as the psychic process of becoming a unique individual. It is the integration of the elements of the psyche into a unified whole, such that a complete personality is derived. This product is the self, which is the pragmatic expression of the predestined character of an individual. Furthermore, the process of individuation itself is an archetypal mechanism which oversees the spontaneous unfolding of selfhood throughout the lifetime of all individuals. It is therefore the agency of self-realization which aims to harmonize individuals to their predetermined nature regardless of the cost to their well-being. However, society somehow retards the dynamics of individuation, engendering the need for non-secular intervention. In anticipation of this bottleneck, special subordinate archetypes inject excess chaos into the life of some individuals, predisposing them to radical individuation. This typically progresses from an injury to the personality early on, which fosters the development of an overwhelming shadow. Then when a limit is reached, the build-up of psychic current in the unconscious decimates the personal, forcing the subject to confront its shadow while seeming to an observer as the breakout of mania or lunacy. This pattern separates collective or organic individuation from conscious individuation, as highlighted in Carl Jung's 1952 book, Answer to Job. He writes, the difference between the natural individuation process, which runs its course unconsciously, and the one which is consciously realized is tremendous. In the first case, consciousness nowhere intervenes. The end remains as dark as the beginning. In the second case, so much darkness comes to light that the personality is permeated with light, and consciousness necessarily gains in scope and insight. The encounter between conscious and unconscious has to ensure that the light which shines in the darkness is not only comprehended by the darkness, but comprehends it. Consequently, the object of these psychic processes is the birth of the total personality, for which the superficial self, the ego personality, must be sacrificed and resurrected in a manner that is intensely intimate and indistinguishable from the literal event. The renewal that follows administers an unpacking of psychic intuitions which gives esoteric knowledge that cannot be cognitively accounted for. Accordingly, the cooperation of the individual is paramount at the early stages of this awakening, for the objects of its transformation are still too raw for integration into ego consciousness. A medium of expression is therefore needed to give him an avenue to unravel the constellated contents of his unconscious and partially reduce their intensity. This is best achieved by drawing or writing the inexplicable notions and motifs rendered by imagination or obtained in dreams. Naturally, the ego would raise doubt as to the validity of these spontaneous products, but paradoxically, this is one of the goals of such activities. That is, by challenging the ego's supremacy, the innate duplicity within the individual is animated, contriving the subsequent merging of two into one. Not long after, will the symbols of the self start to appear to the adept. eager to convey a picture of the total personality. Now, regardless of the scheme of unraveling, a certain numinous archetype will persist in the themes of his symbols. This archetype is the myth of his soul, which Jung described as the personal equation for symbolic expression. He writes, "If you fulfill the pattern that is peculiar to yourself, you have loved yourself. You have accumulated and have abundance. You bestow virtue then because you have lustered. You radiate. From your abundance, something overflows." Conforming to the character of the personal myth instructs true self-knowledge, which is the prerequisite for the conjunction of consciousness with the unconscious. Indeed, the merging of these opposites into a composite whole, as symbolized in the figure of the total man, demonstrates the possibility of corporeal attainment. Ultimately, the aim of individuation is the recovery and incorporation of our divine image into palpable reality through psychic transformation. Ordinarily, uniform psychic transformations are announced in dreams as mandalas, which produce an affective sentiment of reducing chaos to order. Although different dramatic variations have been reported, mandalas are typically radial patterns with fractal properties, sharing a common center or focal point. They are defined as condensed visualizations of an indescribable formulation of wholeness from volatile psychic opposites, a process akin to the birth of an immortal entity. Or as Jung notes, mandalas are birthplaces, vessels of birth in the most literal sense, lotus flowers in which a Buddha comes to life. Sitting in the lotus seat, the yogi sees himself transfigured to an immortal. Additionally, the concentric disposition of mandala symbolism alludes to the composite nature of the self as well as the autonomy of the psychic microcosm. Its outer rings generally depict the superficial realm or the valley of tyrants from which most people will never escape. The inner patterns are protective constellations that harbor the opposites and hold them together in close tension. The core is the fusion of these opposites, which forms a product that can no longer be differentiated or subtracted and is the germ of unity. This nucleus invokes the stability of the entire symbol, representing the self in its subtlest manifestation. Above all, individual mandalas are instruments for meditation, and their creative production through active imagination has been shown to catalyze the individuation process, flooding the unconscious with rich images that percolate into dreams, which could be further analyzed to extrapolate self-knowledge. The soul gives birth to images that from the rational standpoint of consciousness are assumed to be worthless. And so they are, in the sense that they cannot immediately be turned to account in the objective world. Since no universal prescription can be given for what a personal mandala should look like, an arbitrary painting of a cyclic item with a numinous center can be initially produced to stimulate the visualization of more sophisticated symbols. This random depiction might seem nonsensical to the conscious mind, but its deeper significance will infuse the unconscious, where it incubates and stirs up archetypal images that appear in dreams. Certainly, this phenomena is purely irrational and no explanation should be attempted. These dream symbols give instructions to the conscious mind on the degree of unity or entropy within the psyche and should be recorded, analyzed, and interpreted. Although a working knowledge of mythology and dream symbolism is recommended for this task, merely transcribing dreams into words or images has been reported to inexplicably quicken the ripening of the personality over time. This is because the recognition of the intrinsic value of a symbol leads to constructive truth and helps us to live. It inspires hopefulness and furthers the possibility of future development. It is able to do this because of the noumen, the specific energy stored up in the archetype. Experience of the archetype is not only impressive, it seizes and possesses the whole personality and is naturally productive of faith. Eventually, the victory of individuation is in symbolic living, wherein the individual exists in harmony with his symbols and acts exclusively by his primal character. This individual has shed all inclination to conformity and has superior insight, for he understands that the world is fluid and truth irrational. In the same vein, the myths and legends praise this man who acts just as he is, for he is an object of fascination to all. In conclusion, with a number of distractions within reach today, many cannot see beyond their ego perception. This standard is reinforced by the subtle campaign of the media aimed at completely detaching the unconscious from consciousness, manufacturing empty citizens that will never see outside the narrative. Perhaps these agencies are engineered to prevent the attainment of self and lead many to ruin, or possibly deeper symptoms of a tyrannical reality. But in any case, the process of individuation is a personal commitment bundled with suffering and despair. No general blueprint can be given on how to fuse the opposites. The onus is placed on the witnessing consciousness. Or as Jung advises, it is no teaching and no instruction that I give you. On what basis should I presume to teach you? I give you news of the way of this man, but not of your own way. My path is not your path. Therefore, I cannot teach you. The way is within us, but not in God's, nor in teachings, nor in laws. Within us is the way, the truth, and the life.